So remember in the last lesson when we looked at the emphasizer min, we said that it can attach itself to the doer or the receiver in an action sentence. And in an is sentence, it can attach itself to the after is.
Right.
So we already know that it can happen either in is sentences or action sentences. But we're going to add one more condition, and that is that the sentence must be negated.
Okay.
Right? So that emphasizer min only occurs in negated sentences.
All right.
Never in a positive sentence. So let's talk about how to spot the emphasizer min, because we learned min before as a TLDR word, right?
It happens all the time.
Yeah,
it's
and
not even like a rare TLDR.
Exactly.
It's like a super common one.
Exactly. It's a super common TLDR. And so you want to be able to narrow your conditions down, because every single time you see a min, you don't want to be like, wait, is this a TLDR or an emphasizer min? Right? So here are two tips. Right, first, remember we said that emphasizer min can only happen in a negated sentence.
Yeah.
Right, so the first thing you want to do is check to see if it's in a negated sentence.
Makes sense.
Right, and the TLDR min happens all the time in positive sentences, right, non-negated sentences. So as soon as you see that a sentence is not negated, you can eliminate the possibility of emphasizer min.
Okay, so it has to be in a negated sentence.
Has to be in a negated sentence. And then the second thing is translation, right? Remember we said that the emphasizer min translates as not a single. Right? So if you see a min that's in a negated sentence and then you try to translate it as a TLDR, but it just doesn't seem to be adding up, it means you have yourself an emphasizer min.
Okay, so like in the previous examples we saw, like Allah did not send
a single messenger.
Right, but if we had translated that as a TLDR, that would have been Allah did not send from a messenger.
Exactly. Okay. Right? If you kind of just miss that, and because it's a new concept and you end up with the translation, Allah didn't send from a messenger, right? Makes no sense. Right, so go back and see that it's negated, and that means you missed your emphasizer min.
Gotcha.
Okay, so let us look at some examples. So we said that in an action sentence, right, can either act as the doer or receiver, right? And remember that the emphasizer min knocks off or swallows up the label, right? So the way we're gonna figure out what role an emphasizer min is playing in the sentence is the same way we figure out the role of a labelless word, right?
Okay.
Because we don't have the label, so we use the same strategies we've seen actually twice now.
Yeah, with this complex
nouns, and then we saw them before when we studied labelless words for the first time. Right. So the first rule, like we've seen before, is if you found one, you found the other.
The golden rule of labelless words.
Yeah, the golden rule of labelless words. Good. So وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن رَسُولٍ إِلَّا بِلِسَانِ قَوْمِهِ. Here we have أَرْسَلْنَا, which is the action, and inside that we have the embedded doer, we, right? Meaning we've already found our doer, which means min rasulin can only be the receiver, right? So we have a single messenger. Make sense? Okay. And then our other rule, the golden rule of life, common sense.
Yeah.
Right? And so وَمَا تَسْقُطُ مِنْ وَرَقَةٍ, we have تَسْقُطُ, which we're not sure yet, right? It could have an embedded doer or an outside doer, right? So if we were to try to translate it, if we were to assume, okay, the embedded doer, there's an embedded doer, and then min waraqa is the receiver, we'd end up with the translation of she doesn't fall a leaf.
Which
doesn't make sense, right? You can't fall something in the first place. And so then we conclude that min waraqa must be the doer.
And
because
not a single leaf falls.
Exactly. Okay. Not a single leaf falls. So the single leaf is doing the action of falling.
Okay, so it's the same thing we've done before about how to find the rule of a labelless word.
So if it's not instantly clear, like it was in the first example where you had your embedded doer, nahnu, we, then you just use common sense, right? Try both options and choose the one that makes most sense.
Okay, that's been the golden rule of the course.
Exactly. Yeah, just
if your translation is messed up, then you did something wrong.
Exactly. Okay, and then so for is sentences, we know that the emphasizer min can only ever attach to the after is.
Okay.
Right, but there's some few extra tips for you, and that when an emphasizer min appears in an is sentence, it'll kind of look like the sentence is just made up of a bunch of TLDR phrases.
Okay.
Right?
So there won't be like just a normal noun sitting on its own.
Yeah.
It'll all be.
Which is, we usually have that in a is sentence, right?
Right.
We haven't up to this point seen an is sentence that's just made up of all TLDRs.
Right.
Right? Because you can't say, if you think about it logically, like in the room on top of the book, right? And it won't make a full sentence.
Right. It won't make a full thought.
Right. So if you see a sentence that's made up of just a bunch of TLDRs, then you know there's an emphasizer in there.
Okay.
So the example here, ما لكم من إله غيره, right? There's just لكم and then من إله غيره, which looks like two TLDRs in a sentence. And you can't have a sentence that's made up of only TLDRs. So that tells you that this must be an emphasizer min. Okay. And then another tip is that emphasizer min most often appears in sentences that begin with the TLDR li.
Okay.
Right, which means for, right, which is the TLDR for belonging.
Like Allah has the...
Exactly. The unnatural thing for me is something, which we naturalize to I have.
Right.
Right? So it'll most often appear in sentences that start with the TLDR lam of belonging.
Oh,
like,
so most
lakum.
of the time it'll be like someone doesn't have a single something.
Exactly. Someone doesn't have a single whatever. So you do not have any God other than him, or a single God other than him. And then another example here, وَمَا لِلظَّالِمِينَ مِنْ أَنصَارٍ, right? It looks like a sentence that's just full of TLDRs, right? لِلظَّالِمِينَ and min ansar, right? String of TLDRs there. And then our other hint is that the sentence starting with the TLDR li.
Okay.
And then it's translating as, the oppressors will not have any helpers or a single helper.
Okay.
Okay? Is that clear?
Yeah. So the emphasizer min can appear in is sentences or action sentences.
Right.
But the sentence has to be negated.
Right, that's the new rule we added.
And then the way we find its role in an action sentence is the same way we find its role. It's the role of any labelless word,
right?
Because it is kind of labelless. It doesn't have its label anymore.
And then in the is sentence are two tips.
In is sentence, if you have a string of TLDR words, chances are you're gonna have an emphasizer min.
And then
it's usually gonna be someone doesn't have a single something.
Someone doesn't have a single something, meaning it'll start with the TLDR li. And then how do we differentiate between an emphasizer min and the TLDR min?
Emphasizer min will always be in a negated sentence,
right?
And it will translate as not a single. It won't translate as
a TLDR.
From.
As from. Very good.